You better say your prayers, you flea-bitten varmint. I'm gonna blow you to smithereens.
You do that and I'll kill you.
All right, metalheads, welcome to another evening of Bullshitting with Bob right here on Brutiful Metal Radio. I have in the studio tonight, I have Steve from the band Kill Ritual. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, Bobby.
Well, first off, I want to say thanks for taking the time out, man, to come over here and speak with us. You know, I know you guys are really busy.
I don't know, man. I was just going to, hang out, drink a beer, and watch football in a minute, but I got time.
Oh, right on. Oh, you're a football fan, are you?
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
Who's your team?
Well, obviously for the Bay Area, it's going to be the Niners, you know, so for me. But a couple of guys in the band are maybe Raider fans, but we don't talk about that too much.
I hear you. Now,
I don't really feel bad for them, but, you know, that's okay.
well, you know, I'm kind of in the same boat with them. I'm a Saints fan. Yeah. We'll leave it at that right now.
Yeah, you guys kind of going through a little bit, but, you know, it looked pretty good on the last game, you know. Beat the living shit out of the Eagles, so I don't think that was too bad.
Yeah, I just hope we can do that to the next set of Dirty Birds.
Dirty Birds.
Yeah, my wife's not a football fan. Let me explain this to her real quick. The Dirty Birds are Atlanta Falcons.
Oh.
Right now, they're unbeaten.
Yeah.
Is that Vic's team?
Falcons, I know they look good this year, but, you know, I don't know, man. I was, you know, I think it's almost a curse when if you never lose a game, you know, early on, because, you know, you just end up losing the game at the end of the season. I mean, I think the Packers found that shit out, and, you know, Patriots, you know, they've all been through that, you know, trying to have the perfect season and ends up biting them in the ass, so.
Well, you know, I hope we can take out Atlanta. That'd be a big boost for us. I mean, it was nice knocking out Vic and his bunch of Dirty Birds, too.
Right.
And
yeah, I know. I couldn't believe that the way Philadelphia played against you guys' defense. I mean, they just let Vic get his ass handed to him, like, every down. I mean, he was getting sacked so much. It was incredible.
It was a beautiful sight, man. It really was.
Especially if you were saying, man, watching Vic get his ass kicked.
And look, I have no sympathy for Vic, man. All that, you know, bullshit he did with the pits,
yeah,
you know, fighting him and stuff. We're animal lovers here in this house, and I have a half pit, and you know, these dogs, man, all this breed-specific laws they have now, I think the breed really gets a bad rap. It's all in how you raise them, you know. I mean,
our drummer Wayne. I mean, he has a pit, and she's a sweetheart. You know what I mean? It's like walk in the house, and she wouldn't do shit. I mean, she's like sweetest dog ever. So
it's funny. Our next door neighbor has a red nose, and his name is Aries, and he's always, you know, he cries across the fence for me to bring our two big dogs over there to go play. And he's learned how to open the fence, and he'll be in our yard. Like, I'll put the dogs out first thing in the morning, and all of a sudden I hear a whole bunch of commotion outside. I go outside, and Aries doesn't open the gate, and he's out here playing with our dogs. And I got to go run his ass back home.
Big mean shit, no.
Well, I want to say hello to Crimson, who's in the chat room, and Drum God. Also, Sarah and Drum God, and Tom from Blood Lubricant. Thank you guys for showing up, and I know we got a bunch of listeners on the outside of the chat room. Thank you guys for tuning in and listening. It's always a pleasure. Now, let's talk a little bit about Kill Ritual.
Sure.
Now, let's see. You guys were formed in 2010, right?
Yeah, a couple years ago. Yeah, about a couple years ago, just about this time. So I think it was like maybe late October, early November. Yeah.
And it's kind of an all-star kind of a band. You've got yourself and Wayne, formerly of Imagica.
Correct.
And let's see, where'd my notes go? Let's see, you got Daniel, and he was formerly from Dark Angel.
Correct.
And Roberto, formerly of Eldritch. And then you've got Crimson.
Right.
And
it was never really, it just ended up working out that way. I don't remember, every detail, but basically when the match got folded, Wayne and myself decided to to kind of continue on with some of the material that we had been basically working on before the band ended. And once we decided to kind of do that, Wayne and I just basically wanted to, and we made a 4-song demo, and basically just had a 4-song demo, pretty much instrumentally all put together with, what we wanted to do for these 4 songs, and just kind of started placing some, local ads and some of the local online stuff, and just kind of put the word out there that we were looking for members and stuff like that. And I think the first person that actually contacted us was Daniel, and he had contacted us because he heard that the Magic had lost a couple of members, and he was thinking maybe he would give it a shot for a Magica. But then I kind of told him that we weren't going to be doing the Magica thing anymore. So he kind of came aboard to with interest to play bass in this new project. And then the actually guy that probably came on first as far as actually working with us was Roberto, because he didn't live too far away. Daniel actually lives in LA, so he's about 6 hours from where we live in the Bay Area. Roberto came on board. He lived a couple hours away, and we started just working on the material and stuff like that. And then the Josh Crimson came in a little bit later after that, when we started shopping around for a vocalist and stuff. And it tended to be one of those kind of things that that when these guys contacted us, it wasn't even a matter of what bands they've been in and stuff like that before. It just happened to be that we've all been in bands that actually put records out, toured or whatever. So the only guy that kind of came in new to it, but he's been on the Bay Area forever, was Crimson. But he's done a lot of stuff, but he never really got to the the next level that we had got to. So it just kind of all panned out that way.
I'll tell you something, man. Crimson has an outstanding voice. I've been wearing out Serpent Ritual, or Serpent Off. Let me get back to this thing.
Serpentine Ritual.
Yeah, Serpentine Ritual. I've been wearing the hell of that song, and I love his vocal style. That dude has an awesome set of pipes on him, man.
It's just it was one of those things that when we were looking around for a vocalist, we really didn't. I didn't have any thing in mind exactly what I wanted. I just knew that when I heard the voice that I thought was going to work with what we wanted to do, that I would know it. And actually we had quite a few vocalists that came through us and auditioned, and I brought them over to my home studio where we did a lot of the record. Basically the way I worked, I just brought these guys in, set them up in the studio, and say, hey, let me hear what you're going to do on this song. And we ended up working with a couple guys that were really really good, but it was something that when we actually heard Josh's vocals, it was one of those things that there was that intangible thing you couldn't couldn't really put your finger on it. Where for me it was that I liked the uniqueness of his voice, and he didn't sound like everybody else is out there right now. He didn't really have the same concept and approach to everybody else, because even though he's a metal guy, he's been doing a lot of hard rock, and he's been doing he's done a lot of stuff where he just goes into local bar and sits down with acoustic guitar, just does a lot of singer-songwriter type stuff. So his approach was very different. So when it came to this, he had a really fresh outlook on it. He wasn't going to try to do the typical guttural vocals or the death metal stuff or whatever. Even though he can do some of that, he just he came in with a different approach, and I thought that was the coolest thing. He works really fast. He's got great pitch and technique and stuff like that. It was kind of hard, not to work with a guy after hearing what he did on the first couple songs we worked on.
Man, I'll tell you, I think he compliments you guys with the music, because the music's really hard edge. I think he compliments the music well, and I think the music compliments his voice well. I think it's a great working environment for both of y'all. For the band and the vocalist.
The initial songs we ended up coming up with, he had to kind of work his voice around those songs, because we had some ideas already put together. But the later songs, were when I was writing the music for the later songs. Then I had his mind. I had his voice in mind, where I knew that I kind of know what his style is, so that I could write stuff that will work to his strengths, and that's that's how I kind of ended up with some of the material ended up being more geared to what he was doing, so vocally.
Now, how did the name Kill Ritual come about?
That like I always, you know, tell people, you know, coming up with the name of the band was the hardest thing of all. I mean, writing the songs, you know, getting the guys together, all that shit was all duck soup compared to trying to come up with a name that, you know, that hasn't been beat to death or hasn't been done, or, you know, that's probably the hardest, you know, thing we could, you know, that we need to do. I mean, it was one of those kind of things. Everybody just started throwing words out there, just sort of, you know, word combinations, ideas, or whatever, and we just kind of came up with this, you know, word combination. I think I maybe saw something about deer hunting where they have a ritual, you know, after, you know, a deer hunting where they rub the blood on people's faces for your first kill in a deer hunt. And I think that maybe that was, you know, kind of maybe sparks that idea, but it was just basically one of those things that we just kind of popped that idea out there. We said, oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool, and everybody agreed upon it, and it was done.
Right on. And what was it like, you know, going in the studio? Did the songs kind of, you know, flow together? Or did you have one of the songs that maybe that was a little harder to work on than the others?
I think that, you know, basically the way that we recorded the stuff is that, you know, we would get together, you know, since everybody kind of lives all over the place, like, you know, like I mentioned, our bass player's in LA, and Roberto's in Sacramento. He's like maybe 2.5 hours from where we're at. We would get together and, you know, we would bash up the songs a little bit. It kind of started off where, you know, I would, you know, put the songs together in some kind of format concept. I would bring it, you know, to Wayne and Josh. We would beat it up a little bit, kind of, you know, come with a big screen. We'd bring the other guys in, learn the material, and just kind of flesh it out, and, you know, get it to go from there. So when we actually ended up, you know, going to the studio and recording it, you know, we actually had, you know, already had some, you know, some really good, you know, basic demos together, so Wayne could play the drums too, and we could finish the songs after that. But, you know, probably the song that probably took the most work on the album, and I know you don't have it, but it's a song called Code of Blood that was kind of went through a lot of different revisions before we got the, you know, the final version, because it's pretty epic, and it's almost like 7 minutes long. So that one went through took a lot of work. But, you know, the rest of the songs were, you know, pretty simple and they came together pretty easy. You know, everybody's obviously, you know, everybody's, you know, been at this for a while, so that we have, you know, kind of a track record of, you know, working this kind of like, you know, where we've been, you know, in bands that like put out, you know, records and recording in the studio quite often. It was pretty easy to, you know, just, it kind of all fell together because everybody, you know, knows what they need to do to make it work, make it happen.
Right on. Now, one thing that's cool, especially with technology nowadays, is the ease of working with members that are spread out across a distance. Because, you know, you can you know, track something as a demo and email it to them, and, you know, they can pop it into their program and do their thing to it and email it back, and then, you know, really you have to get together, I guess, you know, to do a good studio recording. But as far as demo tracking, I mean, it's excellent to bounce ideas that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you the truth, this band wouldn't exist without that. I mean, that's one of the things that, you know, that's, you know, making a transition from my last band to this band, that, you know, I've, you know, over the years, I've kind of like, you know, assimilated some skills of, you know, of being able to, you know, work and record and initiate my own projects and stuff like that. So now it's to the point where I basically do all the work, you know, myself, except for, we work with Andy LaRock, you know, from King Diamond on the mix, and we'll do that again probably on the next project. But without that technology, this wouldn't even happen. So I mean, it's great because guys, you know, they get the material, they can work on their stuff individually. So when we get together, they've got really good knowledge of what we're working on, and we just work out the minor details, you know, about what needs to be done. But it's not like, you know, the old days where you basically had to all get in the room, you had to rehearse for like, you know, 4 months, and everybody had to learn the songs from scratch, because, you know, it just wasn't available. The technology, I mean, you know, to the point where it's actually affordable to do that. You know, now it is. So it's, I think it's super important, and you know, when we record, hey, you know, we can do, you know, 90% of the work on our own, and you know, that's, you know, in this day and age, because, you know, the way that, you know, it is with, you know, labels and the industry and stuff like that, bands just have to take on a lot more of the, you know, of the work themselves, and you know, and take that on, because if you're not able to make that transition and be able to do that, I mean, it's really hard to survive now. So.
Well, I know with a lot of the bands, I deal with a lot of the independent, unsigned bands, and
right.
I've got one band, especially, Tom, Blood Lubricant, vocalist, is in the chat room right now, and he can attest to this. His drummer lives in Germany, and he's in North Carolina. And, that's how they write. He'll write the songs and click it, send it over to his drummer. His drummer will put everything together and send it back to him, and, mix it, master it, and then put it out. And it just makes things so convenient, especially, for up-and-coming musicians that live in, small towns that don't have access to a lot of different musicians. You can, with the internet, social media the way it is now, you can find other musicians that are in the same kind of boat, so to speak. And it just makes things really nice to where you can collaborate with people. I think
obviously it's great. It's that because hey, not everybody's going to live in L.A., New York, Nashville, whatever you consider an epicenter for music, metal in general, whatever. Not everyone's going to be in those locations, and there's a lot of guys out there who got a lot of talent that just don't have the opportunities, whether it's, financially being able to live in those places or move or whatever. So, this is really cool. I mean, there's a lot of, it's really helped the scene, quite a bit as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of great guys out there that, obviously get some good exposure off of it.
Now, you had touched on, the album was mixed and mastered by Andy LaRocque.
Correct.
Man, that is one busy guy.
I've known Andy for years now because obviously, I think we did at least probably 3 records with Andy with the Magica. So I kind of go back with him for a while, and and his studio that he has in Sweden it's a nice facility, and he's been steadily increasing his business over the years and stuff like that. Because he's been able to do that, and he's got a lot of bands he worked with and stuff. So he's done well for himself with that.
Well, I interviewed a band called Garage Days out of Austria a couple weeks back, and they're actually working with Andy right now as well. And another friend of mine, in fact, we were speaking, before we went live. A friend of mine's band from Baton Rouge, Andy actually put a guest solo on the album.
Cool. Yeah.
I mean, the guy's everywhere.
He's probably one of the coolest guys, in metal. I mean, that I've ever met. I mean, he's one of those kind of guys that he'll work with basically anybody. He's not too particular about. I mean, he's not too critical, about I can't work with this kind of band because I don't like that music or whatever. And I mean, the only thing he requires from whoever he's going to work with is that you're serious, you're professional, you present him with the stuff that's that's well put together, and then he's cool with you, and that's that's the great thing about him. When I first initially contacted him, I just basically cold called him and said, hey man, we're looking for somebody to mix a record. What's your deal? And and it worked out great. He's always been really and he's a really sweet guy.
Now, we were talking also, I was telling you, man, I really love the album cover for Serpentine Ritual. That is so sick. And, let's see, there's a gentleman by the name of, if I pronounce this right, Hobert Mello.
Yeah.
For Sledgehammer Graphics.
From Brazil.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, he's an artist from Brazil.
Man, that is incredible artwork.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The guy's, we had talked earlier about, he's, I came in contact with him a couple of years ago, and, he's just does some really, really cool shit, and, he's a metal fan. He's a metal guy, so he gets the whole thing. You can basically just tell him, kind of give him some sketchy outlines about, what we're looking for, a title, some material, and that's basically all we did with that. We just gave him, a couple songs to listen to, and I did what we wanted to call the title of the CD, and he just came up with that whole concept really quick. And I mean, he also designed our logo along with it, and we think it looks really great. Got the symbol, the logo. He does fantastic work.
Well, I love the color scheme he has on it, and I really like how he's got the Mayan calendar in the background.
Yeah, I mean,
that is sick.
Because, when the song, the Serpentine Ritual, that was one of the sentimental lyrics and stuff like that. That song kind of touches on that whole, Mayan, Aztec, kind of human sacrifice type thing, where they, kind of cut the heart out type thing. So, that it has some, so when he basically heard those lyrics and knew what that song was about, that's where he incorporated that kind of stuff into the artwork.
I'll tell you, that right there, I'm a child of the 80s. I grew up in the 80s and late 70s, early 80s, and this right here would make a fucking great poster.
Yeah, I think, I'm the same way, Bobby. I mean, it's like, if you come from that kind of, that kind of background and stuff like that, and album covers are still really important to you. I remember sitting there, buying, whatever album it was. Maybe I'm going to, use the typical, example. I mean, the first time I saw the cover of Killers, I almost shit my pants when I was a kid. I mean, that was just like mind blowing to me when I was, the age. So I think it's really, I still think it's really important that you have, a cool piece of, artwork that kind of, talks to what the band's about, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what the album is, because, that's what, metal is about, a certain imagery and stuff like that you have to kind of, stick to. And I think the metal fans, expect, metal fans expect great artwork, along with a great album. I mean, so that's, it's important to have that.
You're absolutely right, because a lot of times if you see a band that has really good artwork, 9 times out of 10, not all the time, but most of the time, the music's going to be as killer, if not better.
Yeah, that's usually, I think there's only a couple of instances where maybe the artwork was actually better than the record, but...
Yeah, there's been a few cases of that.
Sometimes when the album stuff, they go, damn, that look cool, man, but that album sucks.
Right?
Yeah. For me, I'll give an example. If I was, it really was a hard pill for me to swallow. And when I went out and bought, Queenswag's, Rage for Order, and I saw the back cover of that, and they were all dressed up like these transsexual vampires. Man, I almost threw up at that, right, when I was younger.
I know, I did too.
I ended up buying that. I bought that record. That's my favorite Queenswag album, man. That almost made it not happen for me when I was young. You had to like, hey, I got like, how much I got here? I got $10, man. It's either I'm going to get the new Maiden now, or I got to make a choice here. So it was tough on that one, but that was almost a flaw on their part.
On that same note, I bought the first Queensryche album, and with Queen of the Reich and the Lady Wore Black. And I was loving it. 'Cause, the guys, they look like metalheads, leather jackets, long hair. Then I Rage for Order came out, and I went and got it. And same thing. I saw them on the back. They cut the hair. They look like flock of seagulls almost. I'm like, what the fuck happened to these guys, man? Did they take some bad acid or what? Whatever it is, they need to stop.
Had some bad advice, but when I look back at it now, it doesn't really matter what they look like. The music was great, but it was one of those things that almost didn't happen for me when I was younger. They kind of look ridiculous, but.
Now, let me ask you, what were some of the musicians that made you, as a young metalhead, want to pick up a guitar?
For me, it basically started with, just from our generation or something. For me, it was basically Kiss. When I had some interest in music. Actually, probably the first, I think the first album I ever got was Elton John's Yellow Brick Road. And I like, kind of was getting into rock music and stuff. And then, I like some of the, the stuff on, that record from Elton John. But then, I don't know. Saw some advertisement on TV. It was for a local concert, something like that. I was obviously too young, but it was for kids. And then I think it was maybe 19. I think it was Destroyer or something, if I remember correctly. And I just saw these guys, wearing clown makeup and spitting blood and fire, and I was like, holy shit, man, what is this? This has got to be killer. Because and that's basically where it started for me, was with that, and then after that, I progressively got into stuff, a little bit more, heavy and diverse. I was always a big fan of stuff like Sabbath and UFO, and obviously Zeppelin and bands like that. And those, obviously those bands were been around quite a bit before I was listening to music, but I still was able to kind of listen to those bands. But probably the band that probably changed everything for me and blew my mind totally was as being a fan is when UFO had come through town here in the Bay Area, and Judas Priest was opening up for them. and I didn't know who the hell Judas Priest was. I just bought the ticket to see UFO because I really liked Michael Shanko's guitar playing. And then when Judas Priest came on, Halford came out there, motorcycle, the whole 9 yards. I mean, that was a life-changing event for me because it was just so beyond what I thought, hard rock or whatever, what kind of music it was, because the imagery was so cool with the studs, the leather, the whole 9 yards. And then from there, it obviously, progressive and stuff like, Maiden and stuff. And even though I had to listen to the Sabbath and stuff, but that was just a totally, different, sound, because Priest was just so fast and just so, a little bit more complicated. I mean, it was really, to me, like, the whole precursor to the whole, thrashing and stuff like that. So, I mean, that was probably, a pivotal moment for me as a musician.
Right on, and I can totally feel you on that, because much like yourself, Kiss was my step into the hard rock world. When I was coming up, all my parents ever listened to was country, and that's the only music I ever knew or thought existed.
Right.
And my best friend's older sister, her and her boyfriend, they're a few years older than us, than me and my friend, and they had won tickets to go see Kiss live, but they had to babysit us. So the boyfriend dug deep in his pocket and bought me and my best friend tickets, and we were like 9 years old, man. We went to see Kiss.
Right.
And full makeup, the full show, and this was back in '78.
Right. Yep.
And I mean that Gene Simmons scared the shit out of me. I can't lie. I mean,
that was a love gun tour. I think that's like probably the first concert I went to also. So we have that in common. I mean, they came out here. They played '78 was a love gun tour. I think Cheap Trick opened up for them.
Yep.
And I made my parents take me. I think I was like 11 or something like that. Had my parents take me to the show, and my brother was younger. But anyway, so that was like a hell of a first concert though.
I mean, when they hit the stage, Cheap Trick, I believe that was, I think it was Cheap Trick that opened for them that show.
Yeah.
And, they got out there and it was fun music, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool, Like I said, I'm a little 9-year-old kid. And then Kiss took the stage, and that was loud as hell. I mean, that's the loudest thing I'd ever experienced up to that point in my life. And then, Gene Simmons come out there spitting fire, spitting blood, and they're all dressed up like evil clowns. That's how I looked at them when I was a little kid.
Right.
And they scared the pants off of me, man. I mean, it was almost like watching The Exorcist. But
now when you look back and the Kiss' music and stuff like that, it's actually just basically rock and roll, hard rock is really that's scary. But yeah, at that time it was like, wow, this is like the most awesome shit ever. I mean, and that was a fantastic tour because the stage set that they had on that tour was just incredible. So I mean, that's probably one of my favorite stage sets the Kiss ever had. So
I tell you, that was the changing point in my life. Because after that, I couldn't go back. I mean, mom and dad was like, "Hey, let's go put on some country." Hell no, we got to find the rock station. And it just got worse from there.
That's true.
Now, you guys getting ready to go on tour?
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna look at doing some stuff, next year, because early next year. It was one of those kind of things that, when we were shopping the record around with our manager and stuff like that, by the time that, we found the deal with Scarlett and stuff like that, and it came out the record, it was one of those kind of things that, our bass player, he just got married on Halloween, and...
oh, wow, congratulations.
The guitar player, Roberto, he's having his first job here in a couple weeks, so it was one of those kind of things that, the way that it lined up, it was just like, oh, well, we got these life events going on right now, and so we'll just have to kind of let those play out. But yeah, we'll be a lot more active after the first of the year.
Now, I wanted to ask you, I interviewed Steve Souza, Zetro, a few weeks back. Have you heard Hatriots, his new band's music?
They're quite active around here in the Bay Area, so. I've heard quite a bit of their material. I haven't seen them live, but I've heard quite a bit of their material online.
I was very impressed with what they're doing. I thought it was the best his voice has ever sounded. I mean, it's really it's like a fine wine, got better with age,
Yeah, I think I mean, for me, he was he was always my favorite vocalist for Exodus. I mean. thought his voice was really, was really suitable for Exodus. Really liked his voice in Exodus. And I mean, in his new stuff is obviously, kind of follows along the same lines. It's basically, I guess, he's basically got a big, big family reunion going on there, right? Because it's basically a couple of his kids are in the band, I think, right?
Yep.
Drummer.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's really cool. They're rocking with Dad, and Dad can help him, get out there and make it happen. I think that's really cool that he's making a whole family thing.
Yeah, he's got his sons Nick and Corey. One of them's playing bass, the other one's playing drums, and actually the 18-year-old is the drummer. And when I talked to him, he told me that his boys had to audition just like anybody else, and he didn't cut them no slack. In fact, he said he was actually a little harder on them. But I tell you,
oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was. I mean, he's going, hey man, you guys, you got to live up to the, live up to the family name here. Dad's kind of a, pretty well known, artist in heavy metal, so he can't be cutting you guys any slack and having some shitty performances because it just, reflect that back on Steve badly. So
I tell you, I was very impressed with the drumming. Because, I mean, for an 18-year-old, that kid is nailing those double bass kicks. I mean, he is just railing them. I could not believe it. And, I had to ask him a couple times, are you sure this is a kid? This is an 18-year-old kid. Oh, yeah. I'm like, damn. But, I mean, of course, when you got a dad like Zet and, you're surrounded, by a group of top-notch musicians your whole life. I mean, something good's bound to come out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, and he's been exposed to enough. They even though they're young in age, they know what to expect, or what's expected of them to live up to the, the professionality they've been exposed to. So that's very cool.
Now, what's the scene like in San Fran these days?
I mean, there's a lot of bands here and stuff like that. The problem that's kind of going on with the Bay Area right now is that they've gone back to that whole pay-to-play type scheme where, they're making bands, cough up a bunch of money in order to get tickets to play a show.
Right.
It's just basically, any kind of show you do around here now, bands are just losing their ass on because they're just, handing over money in order to get tickets to, give away to their friends for free just to get people to show up. So it's kind of sad, it kind of went away from that for a while, and it was kind of cool, but now it's kind of back to that because we have a couple promoters in the Bay Area that kind of, really, they get the majority of the shows and they get the majority of the stuff that's, that people want to play on, so they kind of make the bands, take the hit because obviously, I mean, I understand where they're coming from to an extent because, say you have a touring band that comes to town, whoever it may be, they got to guarantee this band, a certain amount of money when they come in to play these venues. So in order to get that money, they're going to make the supporting bands come up with that in order to, get the headlining band their guarantee. So, it's kind of one of those kind of things that, it's kind of you can see why it happens, but it's also kind of a negative in a sense that, it ends up being that you just end up seeing the same bands over and over and over again because maybe, one of them's, got a rich set of parents or whatever. So somebody's just, coughing up the cash all the time, and the guy that's coughing up the cash all the time is getting 90% of the show, so, it gets a little redundant.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, man. Back in 2007, when the wife and I were living in Las Vegas, our mutual friend we were talking about before we came live, Shannon Fry from Avenger was playing at the Whiskey in L.A. and invited us out to go see them. And they were opening up for Mastery. And we went out there, and there was like 4 bands, local bands before then, and each band had to sell, I think it was 20 tickets.
Right.
But the L.A. scene isn't what it used to be. I mean, we were on Sunset Strip, and we're talking, this was a Friday night show, and the Strip was dead.
Yep.
I mean, you could actually walk across the street and not worry about getting hit by a car,
I was just there last weekend. I mean, because our bass player Daniel lives in L.A., and so his wedding was in L.A. So my wife and I went down and we stayed a couple extra days in Hollywood, and we just did the whole Strip thing, and we were out there on a Friday night. And there was nobody in the Whiskey. It was pretty dead. I mean, on a Thursday night, I think there was more people at the Rainbow Bar and Grill than there was at the club because you know they didn't have to be subjected to some crappy bands or whatever. You could just hang out and drink beer. But yeah, it's it's nowhere where it used to be, and it's because of that. I mean, it's because it's what is our bass for Daniel Colley? He calls it they call it friend rock, where you basically have to bring all your friends to a show and force them to buy tickets. And you find out who your friends are because they won't buy tickets for you.
Right. But yeah, I mean, they had a packed house, or a fairly packed house that night.
Right.
A lot of the younger acts had brought in crowds, but I mean, Shannon had, I believe it was 20 tickets, that the band had to sell. And, I mean, this is a Vegas band coming there. You're not going to have carloads of people from Vegas coming, after work on a Friday night to L.A. to watch a gig, when they can just wait and watch Avenger in Las Vegas and be 10 minutes away from their house. So,
That's true.
I don't know. I can understand why they do the pay-for-play, but on the other hand, it does suck because, back in the day, I'm sure you know this too, you've experienced this, it was always, the band would make either a portion of the door or a portion of the bar. Typically, it was a portion of the door. And there was no tickets involved, just show up, people were going to pack the place, they wanted live music. But in this day and age of YouTube and things like that, I think turnout at shows is really, starting to get a lot less.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those kind of things that I don't know. It's hard to put your finger on sometimes. I mean, every time that when Last Band of Magic, anytime we ever wanted to play shows and actually make some money, we hit the road because it was better for us to go out of town and play shows where people don't get to see it, and people would actually show up and listen to the local thing because people just go, oh, you're a local band, I can see you anytime. You know what I mean? So it's one of those situations that that really now with with the way that things are going with record sales and CDs. I mean, basically you just put out stuff for promotion because really it's most people are not really going to buy records anymore. So you have to kind of count on the merch sales and in the live appearances and stuff like that to kind of help you spread the name of the band and maybe make a couple bucks and stuff like that. But it's one of those kind of things that it's kind of like it's the same process as always been. I mean, I notice now that there's a few labels that basically have a monopoly on the whole touring market as far as metal goes. You know what I mean? If you're not on Nuclear Blast or Century Media or maybe like Prosthetic, or Metal Blade, if you're not on one of those labels, your chances of getting on a tour are basically zero because they control the whole thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a band like Warbringer come through town on every metal tour that comes through here. They play the Bay Area maybe like 4 times in the last year. I mean, to the point where you just go, wow, man, why did I get to see those guys again? I mean, you want to kind of see some a new mix of stuff, but it's because their labels are monopolizing the touring market, and it's really difficult for bands that even like for ourselves. I mean, our label is no slouch by any means as far as like their distribution and what they got going worldwide and stuff like that, but they're just not on the same level that maybe like a Metal Blade is. And there's just no way that they can just like call up a booking agent at tour and say, hey man, you're putting our band on the bill, because they're like, no, it ain't gonna happen because we already got the guys from Nuclear Blast calling us, and they're way more important to us than you are. So it's unfortunate, but it's kind of been controlled that way.
Now, let me get your thoughts on the current vibe of metal. For a while, especially mid to late '80s, even into the '90s, metal bands were really getting into the arenas and having these really huge shows.
Right.
And of course, with grunge and alternative and all that coming into play in the '90s, it kind of backed off and metal went back to the underground. Do you see metal coming back in a large way?
I don't know. I mean, to me, you obviously have, I think nowadays it's almost become like, the only bands that can really do it on a large level are the ones that have been around for, 30, 40 years. I mean, Slayers or a Megadeth. And I don't know how many of the newer bands are able to be able to make it up to the next level. Not because they make it. I don't think it's because they lack talent. It's just I think maybe it's because there's an oversaturation. I mean, when you look at when those bands that were big, when they became big, it's because, metal was still kind of a thing where, only the cream of the crop made it past, the initial bullshit. But now, because of the way that, media works and everything, anybody can be in a band and put a record out and get some kind of notoriety if they, if they put a little bit of effort into it, get a little exposure. So there's a real saturation there, and kind of what it does is, and the thing that I think is, to me about metal after, seen it all these years is that it's splintered into, so many, different, subgenres where you have so many versions of metal out there that people, become fractions, and they go, well, I don't like this, I don't like that. They become, kind of elitists, and I don't, and other things. So that, the dollars get thinner and thinner, and the attendance gets, there's just too much to choose from. And the amount of bands that tours, it's incredible. The amount of bands you can, listen to, the amount of artists, to find is amazing. I mean, like we talked about the early days, basically when you listen to metal back in the old days, you had a couple of choices. You were going to listen to Sabbath or Priest or maybe Maiden or, whatever else. But now you have an enormous amount of things you can choose from. So I think it's, in some ways, it's been a little bit detrimental.
Now, something I've noticed, especially, with a lot of the up-and-coming indie bands, I think is wonderful. You talked about the divisiveness of the subgenres, and especially around the early 2000s, you started getting all these different genres of metal. You had the black metal, you had the death metal, you had the deathcore, you had just grind. And it split up to so much. Now I'm seeing where these bands are starting to pick and choose and bring it back to just metal. Like Shannon, I was telling you, Avenger of Blood's new album you need to hear it. I mean, it's really, that's some of Shannon's best work. But they don't sound like old school thrash anymore. They sound like, thrash with a modern sound. They've took a little bit of black metal and a little bit of death metal and mixed it in. And I love how it sounds. And a lot of these other bands are doing this too. It's starting to bring it more away from all the subgenres back into one main genre.
Right. I mean, we do the same thing with this band too. I mean, whenever in the band, we have, from probably the youngest guy to the oldest guy in the band, we have maybe a 10-year age difference. So, that being said, I mean, obviously the guy that's, a little bit younger is going to have a little bit different influence than the guys that are older, and we kind of all bring those things together. I mean, I think that for us, the thing that was most important was just we say, hey man, if it rocks, it rocks. If it doesn't, it doesn't. No matter if it, we played on a 7-string guitar, it's in the key of A, if it had a little bit of a groove to it or whatever, we decided that, hey, if it works, it sounds great, we're going to play it no matter what, And that was one of the things that, we were all guys in the band, come from, the old school shit, to some, thrash, some guys like the newer stuff, progressive stuff, whatever, So we wanted to make sure that, that we were open-minded to that we just wrote songs that we thought were good. And then, that's, some of the reviews we get on the record, some people really, really get that, and they go, that's totally cool, we dig that. And there's been some guys, to look at it and go, well, this is just not what I expected this to sound like. This is not the thrash that this doesn't sound like Exodus, or this doesn't sound like Testament. And that closed-mindedness is kind of like, for me, it's like, why would you expect it to sound like that? Why would we want to sound like that? Those bands already do that, and they already do it great. Why would we want to do that? But it just depends on people's opinion, what they think metal is. But to me, metal now has become to the point where, I just think it's really important for people to get back to, the really good songwriting. Really good songwriting to me is, stuff that's, is catchy, it's got hooks and stuff like that. And if it fits in a metal format, then it's, it's awesome because, like, you mentioned, Kiss and early stuff. I basically, when I come up and when you listen to those bands, they basically were just writing stuff in a pop format, but it just happened to be heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But they had great songs, and I think that's the most important thing, man. Just really good songwriting, good arrangements, and put it together. Whether it's black metal or whatever else. There's a lot of guys that play that kind of music and stuff. But I'm going to just say death metal for like band like Suffocation, that's death metal, old school. Hey, they write some really cool riffs and really good stuff. The arrangements are killer, so that's because they understand songwriting.
Now, something else I've noticed too, with these up and comer bands, I always ask them, what influenced you? And we're talking, a lot of these guys are, 19, 20, 21. They're still, pretty young. And they always say, oh, man, I love Iron Maiden. I love old Metallica, Slayer. And it's awesome hearing that they're listening to the older stuff.
Right.
A lot of times I expect to hear, oh, man, I've been listening to, Annotations of an Autopsy, or I've been jamming to Job for a Cowboy. But that's not the case. Right. They're listening to the old guys and developing their music from it. And I really think there's hope that the subgenres will come back into one main genre, and that's that's just something I hope for, man.
Touching back on what I was saying before about how things are kind of is splintered, and how things are kind of like there's so many different styles of metal and stuff like that. I think what happens is you kind of any music that needs to evolve, and it's people talk about metal. To me, metal is one of the few musical forms that it constantly is evolving and bringing in different elements and stuff like that, and has been very progressive in a lot of ways compared to. You compare it to some other forms of music that just basically have just been just stagnant. They just basically repackage the shit over and over again. Maybe say modern pop or whatever, contemporary pop is just basically the same shit over and over again, just with new sounds. And metal has always brought in influences of classical music, influences of rock, influences of even jazz. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's that metal has brought into it to make it is what it is. And those subgenres. Like you're saying of, taking everybody out, but then it's basically kind of pulling itself back in because people are realizing, that, hey, you have to have some kind of common ground. And common ground is, like I said, a lot of these young guys, I mean, they worship bands like Maiden and, and Sabbath and stuff. So it's something that they can grab a hold of because I think they realize that, that they hear that's the roots, and they also hear that that those songs are really, really fantastic, and there's a reason why they were fantastic because they just have this intangible that that these guys that wrote those songs are great songwriters, and they put them out there, and it just touches people in a way that people want their music to touch somebody also. So I think they aspire to that.
And I agree. There's no substitution for good music.
Yeah, it's just
good songwriting.
I mean, good music doesn't have to be one chord, a million chords or whatever. It's just one of those kind of things that when you hear it, it hits you, man. It brings brings that out of you, and it's one of those kind of things that that if it's there, it's there. For me, it's like it could be any kind of music. Is what's good or bad. I mean, there's certain music I just won't listen to, but there's a lot of stuff out there beyond the scope of metal that if it's good, it's good.
Well, let me go ahead and we're gonna take a break.
Sure.
And we're gonna let our listeners out here jam on some Kill Ritual. And like I said at the beginning, I've got 3 songs. I've got Law of the Land, Old School Thrasher, and Serpentine Ritual. We're going to play them right now.
Sure.
So, metalheads out there, just stick around. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry, were you saying something, Steve?
Oh, no. Just say rock it, man.
Oh, right on, brother. Right on. Well, stick around out there, metalheads. This is the Bullshitting with Bob show, right here on Brutiful Metal Radio. And we're talking to Steve from Kill Ritual. And we'll be back in just a few. Alrighty, metalheads, welcome back. This is the Bullshit with Bob show right here on Brutiful Metal Radio. And we were talking to Steve from Kill Ritual. And welcome back, Steve.
Thanks a lot, Bobby.
And you guys just got your eargasm for the evening, listening to some Kill Ritual. Now, before we, you were saying that, you're going to wrap it up pretty soon. The CD, Serpent Ritual, when did it drop?
It came out on the 30th of last month, so just the day before Halloween.
Oh, right on. So, right before Halloween. Now, that's perfect.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that just kind of worked out that way. So we said, oh, that's cool. And so, kind of a good time for a CD to come out. And it was kind of like we had talked before. Our bass player just he he got married the day after, so, on Halloween night. I was down in LA at his wedding, so it was kind of cool to have the record come out. He got married, kind of all came together, so it was pretty cool.
Hell yes. Now, whenever you guys do get your tour schedule together, if you would, drop us a line, let us know, because we'll damn sure push it out for you guys.
Oh yeah, we're gonna, we'll be gonna be a little bit more active here coming up at the beginning of the year. We'll be out on the road doing some shows, looking at doing some some dates in the U.S. and we'll be doing doing some dates in Europe. So things will come together here pretty soon. We'll figure it out.
Now, some of your websites people can go to is, your main site is www.killritual.com. You also have a Facebook page.
Right.
Reverb Nation.
And we also have a MySpace. Probably the most up-to-date stuff is obviously our official website and our Reverb and our Facebook.
Right on. And I know our link queen, Vixen, will have that popped up in just a second. I think she's busy scratching all the allergies she's got on her right now.
Yeah, get on it, Vixen. Let's make it happen.
Guess I'm about to crack the whip.
Yeah, crack the whip, man. Get those fingers moving.
Oh, there she goes. I can't complain. Vixen is really awesome. She works really hard. She's my my sis, and love her to death. She does a really good job for us, man. Brutiful couldn't happen without Vixen. That's for damn sure.
She's doing a great job. You guys got the whole the whole metal thing going on right there under one roof, man.
Well, we're trying to do what we can to keep metal alive and spread the word, because we're all very devout metalheads. We worship at the altar of metal every morning, every noon, every night. We bleed metal.
Well, I think that's the thing that this music has going for it, is just the dedication of the fans, and not just like some short-term bullshit, One Direction, I'm a 13-year-old, kind of crap. This is usually people that are into this kind of music and get involved with some extent, as far as like what you and Vixen are doing. It's a lifelong thing. It's it's a dedication to it. Even though you may go through different stages in your life and stuff, that you still have an appreciation for the music, and you're dedicated to it, because it's just one of those things that it's a lifestyle more than it is anything else.
Have you ever had the chance of watching Metal: A Headbanger's Journey?
I've seen them all. So those are some great indications of what people that are into metal are like, and what kind of dedication is involved.
I felt myself really likened to the gentleman that he was in his upper 30s, and he's got all his friends asking why he's still wearing all these metal shirts, and
right.
When are you going to grow out of it? And the thing is, you're not going to grow out of it. It's part of you. It's who you are, and still, you got that rebellion thing happening. Who are you to even ask me that,
Right, yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, I'm the same. I mean, I've had my freaking hair long forever now. I'm wearing some kind of metal shirt right now. That's just the way it is. I mean, it's come to me. It's kind of like it's always been my identity, and it's kind of like who I am, and hey, but when I gotta look clean up and look good for certain things that happen in life, I have no problem doing that. But I'm still most comfortable laying around in a metal shirt and a pair of Campbell shorts. So that's just the way it is.
My brother here in the chat room, he's under Blood Lube Vox, Tom. He put, it's not a lifestyle, it's a style of life. And you are exactly right, Tom.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, I think that that's the thing that the casual music fan will never be able to understand, obviously. But the people that that really do identify with this form of music, then it's it is kind of dictates who you are as a person and what you do with your life. I mean, like you had mentioned before, that you're your first exposure to, music was your parents and country music. I mean, country music has, similarities, and that's, that's a lifestyle. That's a form of music people really enjoy. I mean, it's, it kind of dictates a certain, way of thinking, a certain way of, the way you live your life. And, that's the thing that's great about music. It kind of gives you something you can identify with, and that you know that you have a group of people, and you have people that are like-minded like you that feel the same way, and they identify that. It's kind of like a brotherhood. It's kind of like a tribe. It's cool.
Very much so. Very much so. It's very much like a tribe, and it's always cool. The tribe gets to meet up at a show, and everybody can hang around together and beat their chest and jump in the pit, and at the end of the evening you're sharing beers and stories, and get to do it again next weekend.
Yeah, that's I mean, I'll give you a great example. I mean, my wife's cousin, got married this summer, and they happen to live in Canada. So, and they live in Edmonton, Canada. So we went up to, up there for the wedding, and it just so happens that Maiden was playing, in town on the last tour they did in Edmonton. So we got a couple tickets, went to the show in Canada. Right, you get to the show, there's just a bunch of like-minded people out there. Hey, we're from the States, we're from Canada, but, there's a brotherhood right there. We run into a couple guys at the bar. It only took, a couple words of discussion about Maiden or metal, whatever, man, and then, before you know it, hey, we're having beers and chatting and having a great time, and we don't even know these people, but that's a common bond there, and that's, right away, you have something that is common. These guys didn't even look like metalheads, they were just, the guys probably my age, a long time ago, they cut their hair, and, they're working the suit jobs, but, hey, they still, they love the metal, man, they want to get out there and do it, and they have that common bond. It's cool.
Rob Zombie said it best, in Headbangers Metal, Metal at Headbangers Journal. I'll get it right in a minute. But Rob Zombie said it best. He's never met that guy that said, "Oh, I was in the Slayer that one summer." I've never met that guy either. I mean, if you're in the Slayer, you're in a Slayer for life. If you're in a metal, I've met a few that's dropped out, for whatever reason, but 95% of metalheads that I grew up with still are into metal. And it's a wonderful thing.
I mean, people may, they like I said, lifestyles change. Your status as a person change, your jobs change. Your family life changes. All those things, evolve. You have, and you do go through, those things in life. And it may not. I mean, even the guy that may not be, able to go out there and hit every show and do those things like he used to when he was young. But at the core, you're still a fan of that music, and you still love that stuff. And I think that probably some of the most dedicated people and some of the best fans are actually some of the older ones, because they appreciate it a little bit more. I mean, they don't take it for granted.
Well, Steve, I know you've got to cut out here pretty quick. I want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule, man, and coming and being on the Bullshit with Bob show and sharing with us about Kill Ritual and everything, man. We love the music. We love what you guys are about, and we're going to push you out hard as we can.
Thanks, Bobby, and thanks to everybody there. Beautiful radio. It's very cool that you guys have given us the platform to get on here and expose the music, and you guys are doing a lot of great work. And I know you're busy as hell doing a lot of interviews. Been seeing you guys, basically every couple of days you're hanging out with some guys on the phone and chatting metal, and I think that's awesome. And that's that's the reason why metal has the following that it does. And it's even though there's an underground vibe to it, and and how you want to look at it, man, some of the most dedicated people in the world to this form of music, and and that's what's kept it around for, wow, how long has it been? I think it's since 40, 50 years, whatever, how long metal's been around.
Yeah, right.
It's been that way for a reason, man. Since Tony Iommi played that first metal riff, man, I mean, it's set the world on fire, and that's what it is today, and I don't see that changing anytime soon.
No, that flame's going to burn for a long time, and we're going to make sure of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to, hey, man, I look at it this way, there's always going to be that young, pimply-faced kid that's, tense, confused, or whatever, man, and he's going to hear that music. It's going to, it's going to move him. And for me, and just, kind of finish up there, for me, metal was that thing that, when I was younger, I had that, that angst, that anger in me when I was a young guy, and it kind of became this, this focus for me, and a centering, where I could let that stuff out of my system through music that, that was to me, even though some of the people consider metal's, imagery and lyrical content a negative, I consider those things that it was just kind of a way to draw that negativity out of me and put things in a positive, light. I mean, nothing did it for me like, listening to metal music to help me get that aggression out without taking the aggression in the wrong direction, and doing things that, we're going to end up, drastically affecting my life in a negative sense. The metal's always given me a positive, thing to focus on.
Right. It's a good way to exercise the demons within.
Yeah, man. And, that's what it is, man. It's just like, like you're saying, it's a dedication. It's a good way to let it out. I mean, hey, you put on that badass metal tune, whatever your favorite metal song is, man. You crank that shit up and blow your brains out, man. It really is it really is such a release and such a great way to just blow off that steam, and that's what it's all about.
Well, right on, man. And like I said, when you guys get ready to get y'all's tour schedule, drop one of us a line, because we'll damn sure push it. And
we'll keep contact.
You're
we'll keep you guys going. And hey, thank you. Like I said, again, thanks a lot, Bobby and Bucky and Dixon. You guys appreciate everything, man.
You're part of the Brutiful family now.
Yep, part of the family.
All right, metalheads. I'm gonna throw on some more tunes. So let's see if I can get my mouse over here right. Let's see. I'm gonna throw up some. Let's see. How about some Entrenched Defilement? And we'll start there. And then I'll go in some Hatred and maybe even some Goat Horror.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you put in the Vengeance of Blood you were talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. Say again?
I'd say this maybe play some of that Vengeance of Blood, the new one.
Oh, yes, I can do that. Let me start this Entrenched, and I'll throw that one up.
Yep.
All right, guys, stick around. I got Entrenched, and up next after that will be some of the new Avenger of Blood, which is fucking outstanding. And I really applaud Shannon, man. This is some of the best shit he's ever done. But stick around, metalheads, and we're going to continue on jamming throughout the night. We'll be right back.